Oikos presents 15 Seconds of Strength.
Here we go. Steve's got a trunk full of groceries and no one to help him.
Oh, that's tough, Jim. Looks like a 5-trip load at least.
He grabs the first bag, the second. Bob, it looks like he's trying to do it all in one trip. He shimmies the door open, steps over the dog, and he stumbles.
Oh, right into the kitchen without missing a beat. Jim, now that's a man who eats his protein-packed Oikos.
With 15 grams of complete protein in each cup, Oikos Triple Zero can help build strength for every day. Oikos, stronger makes everything better.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1, go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2, collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3, play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4, unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Monday, April the 8th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly, and David Williams. He's the producer. You'll be speaking with David when you pick up the phone to give us a shout and in the queue and on the air. The topic entirely up to you. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, it's toll-free long distance 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So I'm not so sure I was expecting this kind of snowfall this morning when I got up to make my way to work. Now, there's not really a big load of snow down, but it is pretty treacherous conditions. So if you're planning on going out and about this morning, beware, because it is really slippery. Bunch of accidents, cars off the road, and you know full well some people got caught with their proverbial pants down and took their winter tires off and are now trying to navigate these types of conditions in their all seasons. In reference to a call last week, I believe the lady's name was Kelly. She called and she was quite dismayed that she had been given a ticket on early Friday morning, April the 5th, when the parking ban was lifted. So apparently the city has now responded. If you got a snow clearing violation ticket last Friday morning, so after midnight, Friday the 5th, disregard. The city's not going to follow through with those tickets. That's a good, positive update. And the city doing the right thing. What do you know? All right, over to Switzerland. There's a saying in curling that you could be on the wrong side of the inch, and that's exactly where Team Guju found themselves in the finals yesterday against Team Sweden and Nicholas Edin. Now, congratulations to Team Guju. That's 5 trips to the world. They got a World Championship in 2017, have made the final every single time, but come up a little short to lose 6-5. Had to be super sharp throughout the entire lineup. Wasn't necessarily the case, but they really did battle back. Down 3-0 after 3 ends, and that's going to be a tall task to come back against a team like Edin, maybe the best curling team of all time. But bravo to the boys who earned themselves a silver medal at the World Championships. It was fun to watch. It was a real nail-biter. All you could hope in the 10th with Edin with the hammer is for Guju and team to make it as absolutely as difficult as possible for Edin to score. They did that, and then he pulled it off. Draw full 4, and they're the champions. So congratulations, Jeff Walker, E.J. Herndon, Mark Nichols, and of course the skipper, Brad Gushue. Not what they wanted, but certainly a fine effort. All right, congratulations to the St. John's Caps in the senior hockey ranks. They won the Herder Memorial over the weekend. It's the first time since 1987 that the historic team that are the St. John's Caps have won the top prize. Now, they swept the series 4-0. Yesterday was a 5-0 win to sweep the Deer Lake Red Wings, but a little bit misleading because the game before was 7-6, couple of tight battles in the first 2 games as well. But the Caps are Herder champions. Congratulations to all hands. So the trophy in play, 89 years of age. The Caps have, of course, won a bunch of Herders, but no, I shouldn't say a bunch. They've won several Herders, but the first time since 1987. Congrats to the Caps. And now over this past week, there was a bunch of Easter minor hockey tournaments. Hopefully everyone had fun. Hearing some concerning stories from some other tournaments, which is unfortunate. It's not new. And, you know, there might be an Alex LeHook out there, but it's probably unlikely. But Nook scored yesterday his 13th on the season in 50 games. He's one shy of his career high, which is 14 in 82 games last year. So he's really been quite solid since coming back from his high ankle sprain and all the games that he missed. I think he missed, 10 weeks? weeks. And I don't know if you're watching the frustrating old Blue Jays, but they lost yesterday. And a random note today in baseball history, Hank Aaron hits his 715th home run off Dodgers' Al Downing, breaking Babe Ruth's record in Atlanta, and that was not very well received. You go back and read some of the news clips in the United States on that day. Okay, so happy solar eclipse day for those of you who celebrate. There's been a lot of excitement, and fair enough. It's been a long time since there has been one. There won't be another one for another, was it 50 or 60 years, whatever the number is. And I guess excitement might be tempered in this part of the province in particular. It looks like the cloud cover is going to keep people from being able to see the eclipse. Now, the recommendation is, if you're really so inclined, to make your way into the interior, into the central portion of the island to have a look at it. So about between 4 and 6 p.m. this afternoon and early evening, the so-called path of totality will be for just a few minutes, maybe between 5:11 and 5:13 or 5:14. But if you're so inclined, hopefully enjoy it. There'll be lots of coverage and lots of great pictures floating around, even if you're not lucky enough to have clear skies to have a look. But the one thing is, just be super careful. You cannot look directly into the sun. It's remarkable that has to be reiterated time and time again. But I suppose if we just spare one person from having their retinas boil, then that's probably worthwhile PSA being brought forward here this morning. So, and interestingly, Maggie Brownbury, veterinarian, was on with Ben Murphy this morning on the VOC Morning Show. And the question was, what about our pets? Because they're not going to be wearing solar eclipse goggles or glass or what have you. But when Ben asked, what about our pets? And that the question is not whether or not we should do anything with them and keep them inside or what have you. Dr. Burry went on to say, your pets are smarter than we are. They're not going to look at the sun. That was basically her answer. And I was kind of curious as to whether or not that would be a worry, and apparently not. So if you want to take it on, we can do it. Do we have anyone coming on today about the eclipse, Dave? The worldwide fascination is something else. State of emergency in Niagara. 1 million people have made their way into Niagara to have a gawk. So how about that? All right, let's keep going. So more speed cameras are coming. We just talked about the difficulty in navigating the snowy, slippery conditions this morning. And remember last summer, in a 3-month period out of Mount Pearl and Paradise, just those two communities, in 3 months, 94,000 warnings were issued. Of course, no tickets, simply a warning. But nearly 100 drivers a day caught going at least 11 kilometres over the speed limit. And so apparently, according to Minister Sarah Studley from Service NL, there will be more popping up. So they're talking about some notorious areas like on Veterans Memorial, and there will be more communities that have already reached out to the department about getting in on the action. Why not try to slow people down? We have a problem here with aggressive, reckless and distracted driving. So apparently more speed cameras are coming. Again, I'm probably in the minority, but I think this is a really good idea. They're talking about maybe moving on after this expansion of the speed camera program into putting cameras at traffic lights and on school buses. But here they come, and hopefully this summer they will be peppered throughout the province. Do you like it or not? And of course, this past weekend was scheduled to be the opening of the snow crab season. Didn't happen. You all know the stories involved. So there's a lot to it, and we can take it on however you see fit. There was a representative of the Association of Seafood Producers connected with us yesterday, asking for time for their executive director, Jeff Loader. He was on last week, and we tried to ask him the questions that we thought were pertinent. If he does indeed come on this morning, they said they'd get back to us about timing. If you want to talk about it as a harvester or from any angle, and government's role at the 11th hour for going back to the all deeply flawed price setting process, we're happy to take it on. But we think that we might hear from Mr. Loader this morning. And obviously the contentious issues regarding that species, that season, the tie-up that continues today, boy oh boy. And I don't know if you're on the Newfoundland Fishers Forum, I think that's what it's called, on Facebook. It is super intense, so you want to talk about it. We can do it. All right. Lots of concerns out there about reliability. Newfoundland Labrador Hydro are looking to expand generation capacity to meet forecasted demand, and a bunch of scenarios being considered. And last week on Friday, Jennifer Williams, the CEO at Hydro, gave us an update about some of the damages that have occurred in southern Labrador based on an ice storm. It's not the first time. There was 8 towers damaged back in February. It took a good long spell, a couple of weeks, to get into that remote part of the province to begin repairs. And the link, the LIL, the Labrador Island Link, is still in trying to work through the damages. Initial email from Hydro told us that the repair timeline would be about a week. Jennifer Williams told us last week it would be about 2 weeks. But here we are. It's not even finally commissioned. And we've got huge reliability concerns. And this is not to exaggerate for the sake of. It's happened in the last 2 months. We've had 2 separate incidents where there has been significant damage. and now transmission has been compromised. So, add to it, there was another almost $30 million bill, or $28 million bill, to try to deal with the transmission lines that were experiencing the galloping. They were fitted with turnbuckles to deal with snow and ice, but there was not to deal with the gallop, which is pretty much like a jump rope with the transmission line, was not ideal. So that reliability concern and the surveying how and where they're going to install additional capacity. The news story was confusing last week. So it also went on to mention that considering the possibility of an 8th turbine at Bay d'Espoir, when months prior, I thought they were very definitive, is that over $500 million would be spent to do exactly that. And then if you added in the required upgrades and continued maintenance for Holyrood, which is not going anywhere anytime soon, we were looking at upwards of $1 billion price tag for that additional generation capacity. So you want to talk about it? We can do it. All right, this is an interesting one. So we've seen a wave. I'm being told that the last hurdle for the caps was 1990. Fair enough. And as a matter of fact, my father was part of running that team at the time. So I appreciate the update, lads. Okay. So the federal government historically has not been traipsing around the country with pre-budget announcements. And we know the Minister of Finance, Chrysler Freeland, is scheduled to table the budget on the 16th of April. But this year, they're doing it quite differently. The rental announcement and the $6 billion in the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund and all the rest of it. And we can take it on. But just this past weekend, they talked about $2.4 billion, and whether you want to refer to it as an investment or a spend regarding artificial intelligence. Remains to be seen whether or not this is a good or a bad idea. Artificial intelligence is here, and it's here to stay. Curiously, so there's going to be a change in the way that we look and view the successes in the economy. We use housing starts and measures against CPI and GDP and all the rest of it, all important. But the way that we focus on job creation and subsidies to businesses and the hope that it would so-called trickle down, which doesn't work, has never worked. The concept is, internationally, it's going to be about data and intellectual property and patents and the like to be the real future of economic successes. And some of that will include the complex modeling that could be satisfied by AI. So, here's some of the interesting breakdowns inside the numbers. And generally speaking, with these big announcements, we don't get much of a breakdown. So they're talking about accelerating job growth, and especially important is to try to address the lagging productivity in the Canadian economy, which has been a problem for a long time and has now arrived, I would suggest, at a real crisis moment. And what role AI plays in that? Let's try to get into it. So they're talking about, out of the $2.4 billion, $2 billion going directly towards Canadian AI researchers, startups, and the expansion of the industry. Okay. Then they break down that other $400 million, and it's really quite strange what is at the bottom of that list. So $200 million in funding through regional development agencies going toward adding new technologies to markets, healthcare, clean tech, agriculture, manufacturing. Then they talk about $100 million invested into the AI Asset Program. That's basically to help small to medium-sized business do their research, develop products, which is going to be key for them. $50 million into the sectorial Workforce Solutions Program. And here's the one that really jumps off the page for me. $50 million will go into the creation of a new AI Safety Institute that will focus on the safe development and deployment of AI. If you look around, sure, inside the world of Canadian innovators, and they've got a big report out there talking about the need for provincial and federal governments to really have a change of tune in how procurement works and focusing in on Canadian companies. Fair ball. And we look at some of the things that have been scandalous, to say the very least, and highly debatable as to the veracity of government procurement. Phoenix Pay System, ArriveCAN, and others. Inside the protection, because AI can be extremely helpful and beneficial, it can be a really useful tool, but it can be highly problematic. And so when we talk about $2.4 billion in AI and $50 million is into the creation of an AI Safety Institute, talk about safe development and deployment, here's some of the concerns. There is a distinct lack of transparency inside artificial intelligence. It really is a problem. How the algorithms are created and deployed. Then there's the concept of job losses, and that will indeed be a feature. So Goldman Sachs and McKinsey say down in the United States, some 300 million full-time jobs can be lost due to AI, automation. It's problematic. And of course, we've seen even things like on the assembly line, what it's meant for human beings. And yes, humans have to navigate the robots that are feature of assembly line and the creation and the maintaining of AI algorithms. But then they talk about social manipulation. It's part and parcel of what's happening here. You see it on your own social media feeds, and some of that is AI generated through their algorithms, which could be absolutely biased. Social surveillance using AI technology. We'll talk about biometrics and the rest of it, and then you look at some governments in different parts of the world that are absolutely deploying social surveillance based on algorithms inside of artificial intelligence. Privacy tools, sorely lacking. The biases that are built in and baked in. We have something that is a self-learning technology. Even something that when you say that out loud, it sounds like science fiction, something off the silver screen. AI being sentient. Anyway, that's part of it. There is certainly an issue regarding socioeconomic inequality as a result of AI. Job losses cause for concern for sure on that front. And then workers who perform more manual, repetitive tasks experience wage declines as high as 70% because of automation. So it can come with a problem there. Weakening of ethics. The question that will long be, whether we talk about the Online Harms Act and other pieces of legislation, it's about the ethical behavior. And, on the Online Harms Act issue, we're trying to talk about protection of children, even though the government has gone way too far with it. But how do we control and who becomes the arbiter of good ethical behavior? It's a problem. Then they talk about autonomous weapons powered by artificial intelligence. Inside the world of finances, there's already been cases that have happened already because AI algorithms may not indeed be clouded by human judgment or emotions, but they can have built-in bias, and it's reared its head already. Look back to 2020 and the flash crash and the Night Capital flash crash. That's a result of algorithms going absolutely berserk. How do we talk about it? Human influence. The uncontrollable self-awareness that's featured of artificial intelligence. It might not feel and sound like something that's any concern to you today, but when you look at the breadth of the impact of AI, regardless if you've ever used it, whether it be generational AI like ChatGPT or otherwise, it's going to affect most everything that you see and touch and feel and get involved with financially, socioeconomically, and otherwise. So it's a big issue. But the government traipsing around with the big announcements, you want to talk about it. We can do it. All right, and inside the government plan. So the Canada Dental Plan, I can't tell you how many dozens, if not hundreds, of seniors from this province have contacted me looking for answers about how I'm going to access this plan. So some 1.6 million seniors are going to be treated if they can find a dentist who has enrolled. And that starts just next month. So the Dental Association wasn't brought in until just about a month before the announcement, so consequently, the proverbial 11th hour. Here's some numbers. Approximately 26,500 dentists in the country, 1,700 independent hygienists, and 24 denturists that are practicing in Canada, so that brings the total in excess of 30,000. Apparently, inside a $13 billion Canada Dental Care Plan, which is supposed to start delivering services next month, been a pretty woeful low uptick of dental professionals that have signed up to participate. So seniors are writing me emails and calling and leaving me voicemails saying that that's all fine and dandy, but my dentist has told me in no uncertain terms they are not enrolling in the plan. Why? Because they say the increase of administrative burden, which mimics a program that's already currently in place, which has been a big problem for dentists right across the country. So it's modeled on the non-insured health benefits. So that federal program is dental care to Inuit and First Nations people in the country. There's also concern about what will actually be covered and to what financial extent. So we know that if you have a net family income of $90,000 or below, then you can be involved. There's still some concerns about what about my private health insurance. Then if you use $70,000 or less, there will be no copay. So between $70,000 and $90,000, there will indeed be a copay required, which means you're not getting free dental care. You will indeed be charged that copay at the desk upon the conclusion of your treatment of that day. So, it's very much like a lot of these big swing programs. The details have been lacking, and on this one, if there wasn't ongoing, extensive consultation with the dentists and the dental associations provincially and nationally, this was always going to be the way. So people possibly won't have a dentist that they've got a long-term relationship with over years or decades, and that dentist says, not interested. You want to talk about it? We can do it. And today, the 8th of April, tomorrow, we're supposed to get some information from the provincial government and Minister Bernard Davis about the future of World Energy GH2 on the Port-to-Port Peninsula. We've talked about it a lot, but we can keep doing exactly that. So we were told initially when World Energy, GH2, was sent back to the drawing board for more work inside their environmental assessment, that April 9th would be the date we hear more. Now, people still talk about triggering a federal intervention here through the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada, which would allow for more intervener status and funding for said interveners. So anything on that front you want to take on, we can do it. And advanced polling has opened for the by-election in Fogo Island, Cape Friels, of course, after the passing of Derek Bragg. The voting places from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 4 spots. The Recreation Centre in Carmenville, Church of the Holy Spirit Hall in Fogo Island Centre, the Change Islands Town Hall, and the Jubilee United Church in Wesleyville. You want to talk about that by-election and what it might mean for the future of the various parties running candidates? We can do it. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Openline. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. Donna's going to kick us off, talk about the lack of doctors at Buren. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1 on the top of the board. Donna, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you.
I called a few times about when my husband was sick. I lived in St. John's for almost 40 years, but I decided to move to Marystown with my family, but this is my sister's story, and it's devastating. She had no doctor, and something started growing underneath her tongue. So anyway, she didn't tell anybody. It just was all summer and the fall. And she didn't want to go to the emergency. But anyway, in December, Eastern Health got involved. And they, got her out and about because she hadn't been out in years. Anyway, they got her to, as a team of doctors, I assume, yes. Yeah, so she got a doctor with, on the video calls or phone calls. Anyway, they got blood work for her, and then they took pictures of underneath her tongue, and which wasn't good, and they didn't like it. So early January, they convinced her to go to the Buren emergency room, to get things like probably progress a little bit faster. That's where they were concerned about whatever it was growing there. So anyway, they got her there, her daughters, and which, like somebody hadn't been out in years, had to be a great, tremendous of stress. So she saw a doctor. Anyway, he looked on her tongue. Oh, he said, it's a wart. And then his arms were flaring. He said, can't give you nothing for pain, can't give you nothing for pain. Anyway, he said to her, do you want to see somebody? So my sister said yes. Anyway, she's waiting for a call for the ENT in St. John's. Anyway, but no, nothing came. So the team of doctors got on the go again and got her in, just a few days for Easter. So she went to Sinclair's, and he looked at it, and he said, you got cancer. He never even had the biopsy done. He said, you got cancer. So anyway, she came home, the biopsy was done, so she had to go back again a week or so, and he said, first he said, when he said you got cancer, this was the options for surgery. He said, you'll probably lose half of your tongue, and your bones have to be taken out of your wrist to reconstruct your jaw. So anyway, once the biopsy came back, she went back in again a week later. He said, you have 4A stage cancer. From a wart to this tremendous, it's upsetting. So now she's going to lose all of her tongue and be, feeding tube in. Anyway, she gone in again today, I guess, to get the results of the CAT scan, so we don't know what's going to happen. But this is terrible, terrible. No doctors out there for nobody.
It's obviously terrible. When we have the wait times as they are currently in place, it's a problem. I mean, the front page story above the fold in the Telegram over the weekend was talking about the wait list for MRIs, like we've been talking about on the show. There's some 5,000 people waiting for an MRI, and some of the wait times are extraordinary. Non-urgent MRI wait times are into 2026. So we've got a problem. People are finding out.
We got a big problem. From a wart to 4-stage cancer A. for underneath her tongue.
Yeah, it's quite sad. So people might find out the hard way after an extensive wait that they have cancer, and then their symptoms will worsen, and consequently the interaction with the healthcare system will be more lengthy and comprehensive and expensive, and the detriment to their health. You know, when the province said they're considering a 6th MRI unit out in Corner Brook, I would suggest, knowing that there's 5,000 people on the wait list, you absolutely need to put one in Corner Brook. Then you wonder whether or not, you know, I do think there's a slippery conversation to be had about expansion of private healthcare in this country, but something like diagnostic testing, I think, is a different conversation versus things like surgery. So is there actually a market for someone to open up a private clinic here to try to chip away at the wait list? I don't know. I'll just add that to the conversation for
Well,
point
we
of
need
interest.
doctors. We need people to see doctors. So I moved from town, and I kept my doctor in there. So my husband's back and forth to the Miller Center, so I make arrangements to see our doctor, because I couldn't find one out this way. Right, so anyway, but people need to be seen by doctors. Yes, phone calls are nice at times, but people need to see a doctor, and not to be treated like piece of, you know what. Oh, you got a wart. You got a wart. I can't give you nothing for pain. So what did my sister go through in 2 months and 2.5 months? She went through misery, you know, because she couldn't get nothing for pain. He wouldn't give her nothing because he just thought it was a wart. To this amount of cancer in her mouth. Oh, God, this is awful.
I understand your frustration. It's not like Compound W is going to help treat her cancer, so this is terrible.
Yeah, and it's not a wart. It's
Obviously
cancer.
not.
No. Well, anyway, I just want to get that out there, Patty.
I'm glad you called, Donna. I wish you and your family well. Pass along my best wishes.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Oh, boy. Let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 2. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty.
Hi there.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if it was me. I wanted to call in and speak about the comments our Minister of Justice made in the House of Assembly. How sexual assault victims are not re-victimized or re-traumatized.
Do you want me to put the quote out there so people know what we're talking about?
Sure.
Okay.
Please.
So they refer to the fact that it was a heated exchange, which is absolutely no excuse. Here's the quote that got all the attention. So, I don't want anyone in this House to mislead what's happening in court here with regards to the sexual assault victims. It's a very serious issue, and the lawyers in this province are not re-traumatizing sexual assault victims, whether it's Crown or legal aid or a private lawyer in this province. It's not the way it works. It's actually impossible for it to happen, which is dreadful and a ridiculous thing to say. He has since apologized for, but that's getting a lot of the attention. You know, the reference was made to lawyers approaching witnesses, and I do know that the lawyers are standing in one spot and they're not approaching witnesses, but the utterance that sexual assault victims can't be re-traumatized in a court of law is absolutely ridiculous, and it's not just inside the courts. It's, you know, as they go through the process. Your thoughts, what did you make of it?
I agree with you, Patty. It's absolutely ridiculous. Many people have come forward. I have been sharing my story on TikTok of sexual harassment and my toxic workplace. I spoke to you before. I just wanted to address that it's this mentality that scares people, women and men, because it happens to men too, or whoever it is, from coming forward to talk about sexual harassment in the beginning. Because they know that this kind of an attitude from a minister, this is what they get. I've actually had people contacting me since I've come out with my story, and I'm amazed at how many people have gotten away with the things that they do. And I actually had one person contact me today and inform me that she was actually asked to write an apology to, when she brought it up with her MHA, she was actually asked to write an apology letter for the House of Assembly, I think it was, because she was making men feel uncomfortable. So when I read that this morning, I was like just floored, but not surprised, because in my case, it was like over 9 years of having to work side by side with a person that felt like it was okay to say whatever the hell he wanted to say to me. Anyway, there was a lot added to it, and for the minister to say that someone that was sexually assaulted is not re-traumatized. I know I feel like I'm traumatized sometimes. I left that workplace in 2017, and I still think about what I had to endure. I dream about it. So that's traumatizing.
Yeah, just ask Jane Doe, who went through all those trials regarding Douglas Snellgrove, which has finally been settled by the Supreme Court.
Exactly.
Look, the criminal justice system is always going to be and is necessarily adversarial. But that does not mean there's an acceptable crossing of the line, getting into territory which is purposefully trying to trip up or to confuse or to re-traumatize someone who has been the victim, allegedly, during court proceeding, of a sexual assault. Okay. Confusion about timeline, because inside the world of trauma, timelines can get a bit muddy in people's recollection. And I know that the defense attorneys have a job to do, and it's important that they be able to do it. But we've changed the way it works in a variety of different fronts. I'll just, for an example, the drug courts. We've kind of just changed some of the conversation to try to come up with better ways to navigate, better outcomes, better inclusive treatment. You hear people from the Council of Women talking about how the model kind of leaves them on the outside looking in when they should be the key focus, and the inclusivity of having them involved in the process and reducing the potential of harm and re-traumatization. But we're not there. We're simply not there.
Exactly. And it takes place. I can tell you 100%. I contacted, because I felt like I had no choice. I contacted right to more than one premier when this was happening. And I also confided in my MHA, who will be involved in my case. You tell someone. I told my union what was happening, and my union representative that was supposed to be helping me, that union's member's response was, "You don't want to go there." Like, I don't know if it's education they need right from the top to understand what happens in these situations, but something definitely needs to change. Definitely.
I agree. I mean, there's examples. For instance, there was a judge, I believe it was in Ontario, that actually used the word SLUT, aimed at one of the victims of sexual assault. It's now become an international day of recognition and awareness when they call it the slut walk. So we've had conversations about, blaming it on someone because of what they wore, or blame it on someone because of what they drank. Number one, if you're inebriated, you cannot legally give consent. Number two, nobody who dresses provocatively is asking to be raped, which is an issue beyond the type of crime and sexual crime it is. It's the concept of power. So what you wear, how much you drank, does not open an invitation to be sexually assaulted or raped.
Absolutely, Patty. I was told by this same person that when I was trying to get a position out of that place where I was working, I was told I looked too good for them. People do not understand what has to go on in your head to understand why a person would even say that, or why someone would think it. It's insane, but it has to start from the top. It has to change, and people need to stop being re-victimized and re-traumatized for this stuff going on. And our Premier and our Minister should be the ones setting the example for this, not making comments like our Minister of Justice made.
And here's these comments insofar as the apology goes. I was always aware that the system is not perfect and needs some work. Lawyers reached out to me after those comments in the House in a good way, and they said, you need to think about what you said. And this is what happens in some situations in court. And lawyers can conduct themselves, maybe intentionally or maybe unintentionally, in a way that can harm victims. I think those are good conversations. In a way, I'm glad this happened. Interesting. To continue having these conversations and to learn. You would think that the Minister of Justice would be uniquely positioned to change the conversation in a meaningful, positive way, as opposed to have to get involved in the back and forth of this unbelievable set of circumstances. I'll give you the final word this morning, caller. You go right ahead.
I applaud the lawyers for letting him know he should rethink what he's saying. Some of these people really need to rethink what's about to come out of their mouth before they say it. Thank you very much, Patty, for letting me on today. Have a good day.
I appreciate your time. Take good care. Okay, bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the by-election, which advanced voting opens today for Fogo Island, Cape Friels. Then we're going to talk about World Energy, GH2, the fishery, whatever you want to talk about right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. As mentioned, the by-election is ongoing in Fogo Island, Cape Friels. Running for the Liberals is Dana Blackmore. Running for the PCs is Jim McKenna. And for the NDP is Jim Gill. And Jim joins us on line number 3. Good morning, Jim. You're on the air. Good morning, Jim Gill. You're on the air.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, there we go. All right. Hope things are running smoothly behind the scenes at the show there this morning. All good.
I can only hope so as well. Congratulations on taking a run at this by-election. Jim, have you run before?
Yes, I have. Yeah. Well, most recently, 2021, the COVID election. That was a strange experience, but I did run here. And, going way back, you triggered a memory. 2002, I ran in a federal by-election, Bonavista Trinity Conception. So I've got the political bug. Now and then it comes and goes, and sometimes I find it energizing, and sometimes I'm frustrated with it. But I've always had an interest in politics and news, so sometimes it's hard to resist. So I'm stepping forward again. It's where I'm from. I mean, this is the district where I live and where I grew up. I'm from Newtown, and so I'm taking a crack at it here. It is a by-election. The government's not going to change as a result of this, so it's a great chance to send a message. I don't think the province needs another Liberal MHA right now. Maybe they don't need another PC. I don't know. But it's certainly good to send the message that we need some good, proper investments in health care and education. The district includes Change Islands and Fogo Island, so concerns about ferry service are always front and center there.
And I do see that two doctors.
A new voice to that.
And I see that 2 doctors have agreed to work on Change Islands, which is good for the folks in that particular area. So inside the specifics of, let's say, for instance, healthcare, where are the ideas for where the government is currently, in your estimation, coming up short, and things that should change for your district specifically? And I just brought up the election results because one thing inside a by-election that's always an interesting feature is that there's no incumbency bump. There's no incumbent running who would be better known possibly for their time in cabinet or on the news or what have you. And so, of course, exactly that is in place here. Derek Bragg, the late Derek Bragg, is not on the ballot, obviously. So what's a district-specific healthcare improvement that can be made, and how can it be achieved?
Yeah, exactly. I know. It's strange. I mean, you watch the evening news here, and it seems like emergency room closures is like a constant feature in the news. I know New West Valley seems like, and other parts of the district, going to Gander always seems to be the thing to do for more serious health concerns. Some people don't have that ease of transportation. So we certainly need to, improve recruitment, get some more local services built up, and of course, when it comes to healthcare in a long-term sense, and this people kind of set this aside now and then, but as a province, we do need to get a little more healthy. Go for an extra walk, watch the food choices. A healthier population is certainly something that would help lower healthcare costs. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Another thing I'm hearing, just in a general sense, a lot of people, when it comes to politics, they're just poisoned with it all. So that's another reason I'm running. Just being a new, fresh voice, certainly, having a welcoming attitude. I've got no real political baggage with the other parties. So it's, certainly being available. If you're going to go into this with a lukewarm effort, you're not going to really restore much faith in the process. So I definitely want to have that. Let people know the door is open. I'm here to listen. I don't mind, just speaking truth to power and telling the truth, even when it hurts. So, we do need a good advocate for a part of the province that kind of gets overlooked. A whole lot of Liberal Tory, same old story. So I do want to just fight like crazy and get our positions on the map, get our needs raised. I know, like right now in the House, 3 NDP MHAs, and we're certainly punching above our weight, getting a lot of attention on homelessness, the concerns of Labrador. So we can really bring some things forward and get attention.
Yeah, 2 of your members from Labrador, Leila Evans and Jordan Brown. And of course, Mr. Dinn, the leader of the party, represents St. John Centre. Historically speaking, the NDP have struggled, quote unquote, outside the overpass. So just looking at the results, Derek Bragg won in a landslide last go around in the most recent general election. So why do you think it is the NDP struggles so mightily? It is interesting that they have 2 members from Labrador now. Leila Evans wasn't elected as an NDP member, Jordan Brown was. So why do you think that is the case for your party?
Yeah, right. Oh, well, we definitely. There are new Democrats here, and it's a matter of stepping forward, knowing. I'm doing my best here, plugging away. Knowing there is a candidate. I'm doing some. You mentioned Jim Dinn. He's actually going to be visiting tomorrow in the riding. There's some meet and greet events, and it is funny. It's not just here. I know in certain parts of the province. When there's an NDP candidate up and running and having the campaign, it's like let's go see the unicorn. It can be a rare event, but we're certainly putting the best foot forward. We do have a different approach to politics. I think if people really looked into their hearts and minds, that NDP message of social justice, of tax fairness, of not letting big business have its way, of making the proper investments. It's a message that's out there. I think even, going way back in Joey Smallwood's time, I think there was even some speculation that he could step forward as a new Democrat because we did have that, building up. He was pursuing better health services, better dental services. So there is a little bit of a match, even if the party label isn't there. I think those intentions are certainly a direction that the party wants to go, or that the party in the province want to go in. It's not a message of selfishness. It's not a message of the person who dies with the most money wins. We need to build up the province, build up our people, get people to contribute, be all that they can be, land a good job with proper education, and then we can all be lucky enough to pay taxes. So that's the kind of system we want to build up.
I appreciate the time. Good luck.
Excellent. And Jim Dinn visiting tomorrow. Some stops in Musgrave Harbour, Carmenville, the Carter's Dairy and Convenience. We're having a bite to eat there. So it'll be great.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks for the time.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break, try to get back on track here a little bit. Mike Coos is next to talk about wind energy. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Mike, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Morning to you.
Good morning. Paddy, first I'd like to say, I love this province, love Newfoundland, and then I'll start from there. There's something I'm going to need your help with. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I don't consider myself a spoon. And something came to me there the weekend, and I'm reading some stuff and doing some background stuff, and I hope you'll give me a bit of time this morning. And one thing that came up is I wanted to know, and I'll ask you a question. I always have a loaded question for you. Paddy, do you know the difference between a coalition and a cartel?
Yeah, pretty basically. Why? What's that question in reference to?
Okay, well, I'll tell you, because I looked at the definition, and really there's not much of a difference at all. So I wouldn't think it's a Cadbury secret that we have a coalition in the federal government.
You have a what?
That we have a coalition in the federal government.
Well, people can call it whatever they like. In a minority parliament, they've entered into this supply and confidence agreement. It's not the first time it's ever happened. It actually seems a little bit strange to me that there's so many people so frustrated about that, because minority parliaments either fall right away or there's some cooperation between two parties to get some of the people's business done. I know people don't like the fact that the Liberals and the NDP have joined forces or put both feet under the covers together federally, but again, this is not new.
No, that's true. And like a coalition, and the whole point of a coalition is control the outcome and control what happens and stuff and that there, and one agenda becomes everybody else's agenda. No, so and I'll move off from the federal government and I'll move down to the provincial government, and we have our own coalition here, and then people probably are not aware of it, but I'm well aware of it and stuff. And that's when you're trying to control the outcome of certain things and projects and everything else. And it's alive and well here. And if you'll give me a few minutes, I'll explain.
Well, let's get into it then. Let's go.
Okay, let's go. 2007, we've got to go back first. There's a bit of history. 2007, there was a wind energy moratorium put in place.
Right.
Right, that was 2000. And it was put in place, and I need your help with this, Paddy, because, like I said, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I think it was put in place for various reasons, and probably some that I'm not aware of. And it was to, because Muscat Falls was coming online, they were trying to control private enterprise coming in and setting up their own stuff and getting under the grid. And maybe there's a couple other reasons, but it was put in place for a number of reasons. And maybe you can light me on some other one.
Well, I mean, the basics are, look, even if there was not a moratorium, it was still completely up to the provincial government to allow one wind proposal or another to come in. So just because it was banned doesn't mean that they still didn't have the opportunity, excluding the ban, to say no to whatever proposal.
Exactly. So we can agree to say that, and it lasted 15 years and was put there for a number of reasons. So let's bump ahead to 2022, and then that moratorium was lifted. All right, so that opens all kinds of opportunities for people to come in and knock on our doors and stuff and that there. It opens up opportunities, especially to the public people of Newfoundland. And what we're going to do, this moratorium is lifted. But where I get to the coalition and the cartel or whatever, it was already a done deal prior to the lifting of the moratorium. It's not like the government lifted the moratorium. Okay, we're going to take a year now or 2 years and take submissions from private enterprise. How can we secure our own electricity here on the island? How can we get rid of Holyrood generating plant that burns Bunker C? We're one of the biggest polluters in North America with Holyrood. You just mentioned it earlier on your preamble. We're going to experience power electricity shortages in the near future.
Well, we might certainly the possibility for unreliability at Muskrat Falls, because there's still issues there with the turbines. There's still potential risks associated with the Labrador Island Link. There's still problems possibly at Soldiers Pond. But the ban on wind-generated power in 2007, it led the path for expansion in hydro, consequently Muskrat Falls. Yeah. And I know where you're going with this coalition or cartel regarding wind, but of course, and you did mention hydro looking to expand generation capacity based on forecasted demand, but onshore wind has virtually no business model that includes generation of power for us. Now, there's going to be parts of the year where they need power from the grid, parts of the year when they can sell excess power back, but their basic model is to generate wind power, electrolysis, hydrogen, ammonia, export. So it's not really a Newfoundland and Labrador solution, period.
Exactly. It does nothing for the people in this province. It does nothing to get rid of Holyrood.
Not for power, it doesn't.
It does nothing for it. And then when you mention hydro, and I'm trying to stay on track here because I'll tell you why. My partner, my best friend, she says to me, your passion sometimes runs away with your throat. So I'm really trying to stay on track. But so like hydro and all the stuff that I looked at, they looked at the watersheds here and the amount of water that was available, because we got Bay d'Espere, Cold Spring, Granite Lake, Victoria Lake, that's all backed up into that watershed. And we got some other smaller hydroelectric projects going around Newfoundland. But some of the other things that weren't considered to Andrew Parsons and Fury and stuff and that there before they lifted this ban and stuff, hydro said that we don't have enough water to make another feasible hydroelectric project. But still in all, with these four projects...
Who said that?
This was back at hydro when they were looking at getting other generating stations, projects around around the province.
Well, we do have the water if we're talking about hydro. I mean, there was a report from the Harbour Centre a number of years ago talking about the significant number of small hydro projects that could be part of our energy portfolio. We're talking about the possibility for 2,225 megawatts at Gull Island. We're talking about an eighth turbine at Bay d'Espere, so it's not a shortage of water regarding any hydro development.
Okay, so that's great. That's great news and stuff. And and the reason I brought that up because these hydrogen projects, are going to take billions of cubic meters, and there again, so we're not going to use wind energy to go on our grid, and at times we're going to deplete our energy because when the wind is not blowing, they're going to need it. And then we're giving away billions of cubic meters that we could be damming up, stockpiling, and using for hydroelectric for ourselves.
Yeah, but you need run of the river to generate hydroelectricity. You can't do it in a pond or something, for instance. So, the reservoir that World Energy GH2 is going to use is an established commercial industrial reservoir once formerly used by Abitibi, and they don't need anywhere near the amount of water that's in that reservoir for their proposal. Now, there's different concerns when it comes to Botwood and Exploits Valley or Everwind on the Burin Peninsula and or Pattern Energy at Argentia. But the water for World Energy, we understand what that is. And the giveaway is, I think, fair. Although there is a royalty on the water, it's a pretty insignificant amount of money, though, in my personal opinion. But, Mike, let's see if we can fast track towards your summary points before I get to the news.
Okay, my problem is when this moratorium was lifted, and we're talking 1.6 million hectares of this province, and Crown land is public land. Crown land is not for government to willy-nilly pass around and everything else, but to have projects pre-planned before there's an announcement made on lifting the moratorium, to have stuff done in the back doors, to have business arrangements done on salmon rivers, and before the public are informed, is something that I've got a real problem with, and I hope most Newfoundlanders, because there was no public consultation regarding, we've done this land grab, 1.6 million hectares, all out to these beautiful rural areas where there's tourism and outfitters, people's homes. There's going to be that many class action suits against the provincial government when people out in these places and they can't sell their homes because they have turbines within a mall or two malls, and their home values are actually went from 400,000 to zero. When tourism business start to fail and lose, they're going to have class action suits against the federal government. When our outfitters can attract the hunters from the States and all around the world, there's going to be class action suits against the government. But there was never, ever, like what they've done and proposed and how they've done it without any. Go back to 2022. Did Andrew Parsons, the only people they spoke with were the people that were involved in these backroom business deals. The public was never considered. Never considered at all. 1.6 million hectares in the most beautiful province, and our tourism industry wasn't considered.
Just a couple of things, just in case, is the 1.6 million hectares of land was if those 35 proposals that were initially put forward were going to be able to utilize that land. The amount of land that's currently in play for these 5 proposals, 4 of which the province has been dealing with, one, of course, the Port of Argentia with Pattern. They're not using Crown land in the first phase. So the 1.6 was if all of those proposals happened, but that's not the case. So it's not 1.6 million hectares. And the Crown land, thankfully, is not being sold or given away. They're just leasing it, which gives us some continued control over the utilization and how that Crown land is used. That's my understanding. Anyway, and I do have to go, but I'll let you wrap it up, Mike.
Okay, and the point that I'll get to the coalition of cartel, we've got a number of different priorities here. We've got the NDP, we got the Conservatives, we got a couple of independents, and then we got the Liberal government. And all this backroom skullduggery was going on, and I'm sure there was people that was privy to this, and nobody thought in their great wisdom, listen, 40 MHAs. Should we not bring the public in on something that can change the landscape of Newfoundland forever? Is the future of Newfoundland done on the salmon rivers of Labrador and closed door meetings? It's ridiculous. We had 40 MHAs in there, 40 of them, and their mandate and their code of ethics is to protect Newfoundlanders. Look after Newfoundlanders first. And what are people going to do out on the Port Peninsula when their property values plummet overnight? This is what government is going to be responsible for. They're going to be responsible for the outfitters, the tourism, and now Andrew Parsons is on a racetrack to do the same thing with the fishery.
Well, Parsons doesn't have anything to do with the fishery. The next announcement from the province on wind comes from the Department of the Environment, which is Minister Davis's portfolio. Mike, I'm late for the news, but I appreciate you making time for the show.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Paddy.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. Welcome back. The fisheries critic for the PCs is Craig Party. He's next. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Say good morning to the PC member for Bonavista. He's the fisheries critic. That's Craig Party. Craig, you're on the air.
Paddy, good morning to you, and thank you so much for taking my call.
Happy to do it.
Let me first of all diddle your comments in your intro on extending kudos to Team Gouju on a great job and a fine effort. You were right that it came down to that last shot, but it was certainly a captivating championship. And one thing it stands out in my mind with the curling in Newfoundland and Labrador is one thing that Team Gouju has done is he's created a very strong fan base in our province. I think Rita Dirtle and Marge Wheeler, just two of numerous Newfoundlanders that are now tuned in and curling advocates and huge fans of the sport. It wasn't there before Gouju, but he certainly put us on the map as far as Newfoundland and Labrador and curling. And the guy and the team deserves a whole lot of credit.
Well, I mean, I believe they're two-time world junior champions, Olympic gold medalist, world champions, 6 Briars, one of the best teams in the history of the sport. Gouju and Nichols amongst the best shooters in the world. I think it's amazing. I think we kind of take it for granted at this moment in time, and so be it, because he's been right there in front of us for so many years. I think it's just incredible what they've achieved as a team, and it's not over. I believe Brad is 42, Mark is 43 or 44, so they still got some gas in the tank.
Yeah,
and I should add Jeff Walker, who was a great player. So, and Herndon maybe didn't have his very best stuff yesterday, but he's been pretty solid second.
Yeah, and just a final comment on that, Paddy. I know that he was disappointed in his post-match interview. You could see it, but I said I was just as proud probably as in his game and his effort as what it would have been if he had won. And I understand that, gold is what he plays for, but he's got a lot to be proud of, and as do we. Paddy,
every single time they've been at the Worlds, they made the final. I mean, so that's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And from here, sometimes we sometimes don't aim high in our, in what we plan, but we surely should be doing more of it. No industry more important, I think, to rural Newfoundland and Labrador than, I think, the fishery. I think most of us will probably agree on that. I spoke in the House of Assembly last month with there were a lot of harvesters in the gallery that was listening, and I talked about the fishery on the Bonavista Peninsula and the significance of it. I've since had people reach out to me and ask, questions like how many employed in the processing in the district of Bonavista, or they'd ask questions of how many laborers from outside of Canada or foreign workers that would be in our processing plant. But I just want to take a moment to talk about how significant it is on the Bonavista Peninsula and where it is. When the plant is firing, that's basically going 7 days a week, then there is as many as 450 employees at the processing plant in Bonavista, taking a lot of their catch from the harvesters in and on the peninsula. Of those 450, there are no workers outside of our region that work that plant. What's unique about that is that they've got a waiting list in excess of 100 employees that are, or potential employees that are on a wait list for employment. This particular year, in gearing up for this season, they've hired 38 new employees, and they're coming from on this peninsula. And I would think, Paddy, when we look at the processing plants in Newfoundland and Labrador, which we have 90 of them, That's a little unique from the stories that we hear. And I've had two people reach out to me and ask me about that particular question. What does it mean to the economy on this peninsula? Well, the payroll from the plant, when the plant is operative, is about $330,000 a week for the plant workers, and so on. If you add the harvesters to that amount, then we're looking at generally harvesters and other businesses, other workers, then we're probably close to $1 million that would be put into the economy every week, of which the snow crab fishery is ongoing on our peninsula. I've said in the House before, and I think concurred by my colleague in Terra Nova, MHA Parrott, is that as goes the fishery on the peninsula, goes even Clarenville, which is a service center in our district. So it is so significant. We've got the plant workers and the harvesters respecting each other. And I think both of them acknowledge that there are issues that each need to deal with, and they are supportive of them. But what's unique about the plant workers is the fact that they've got to capture enough EI in order to catch to the start of the next season. And last year, it might have been a lapse of probably 4 to 6 weeks that many didn't have access to their EI benefits because time had run out. And that is the situation that we're finding ourselves in here now, is that we don't have enough time in order to get to the operation of the plant in order to get that income. And that's what we face.
But Craig, does your plant always hit the number of weeks required for the plant workers to qualify? Is it a multi-species plant, or what's the concern? Now, of course, some of the rules regarding employment insurance changed last year with the most recent employment numbers that were released, so it became a concern beyond just the seasonal feature of the fishery itself. So is it multi-species? Do they always get their weeks, or what's going on?
It's primarily snow crab. They also process capelin, turbot, and halibut. And those are the species of which but it is primarily snow crab. And I would think probably that is OCI's flagship. You mentioned about the EI program. Remember now, what happened last year is that we do have a lot of laborers that come in, probably out of necessity to come in to operate a lot of our industries here. We noticed that the employment increased, the unemployment decreased, and that changed the formula. So when the formula changed last year, Patty, which you're aware of, is that, through it all, the ins and outs, the formula changed, and all of a sudden the divisor changed, and they've got less money and less weeks because of the employment opportunities in the area. The sad part of it is that in the winter, they don't have the employment opportunities unless they leave the province or leave to go elsewhere in Newfoundland and Labrador. And one thing that we were looking at and talked about last year was changes to the EI system, which in 2019 the federal government had stated that they would tackle. We've got a massive geography, and that's one of the things about operationalizing and looking after a province, a massive geography. All the Maritimes could fit into Newfoundland and Labrador, but we've got two regions, in our province. We've got the Avalon and we got off the Avalon, and one would think that off the Avalon is a massive amount of territory in order to say that we're all going to have the same formula apply to everyone. Whether you're hours away from a service center, the formula. So this is part and parcel of what we're facing right now is the EI system and the formula. And I think there's efforts, I would hope efforts to address it, but that's another piece of seasonal operations like we have in Bonavista. 3.5 to 4 months is the duration of the employment that would be dealing with the snow crab. At that point in time, they're usually reducing their workforce. Would they like to expand? They sure would. I think every employee down there like to run it to 6 months. And hopefully that happens when we get up and running. But it is the economic engine of this peninsula. And I think, yes, they are supportive of each other as far as the harvesters and the plant workers, but it is an integral part to the district. And the only other one I would think that we're looking at tourism, and we also have the sections lumber. But number one would be the fishery.
the fishery at this point, because yes, we can talk about foreign ownership inside the processing sector and controlling agreements and expansion of capacity this year, about 5 million tonnes, removal of caps, those types of things. But this was outside buyers, added whatever moving part to the conversation. But this was always going to boil back to price. It just was. I mean, yes, it's probably a good idea to explore the concept of an outside buyer. Now, the price for crab is currently has since dropped in Nova Scotia. Not a whole lot, but it has dropped. So unless we can figure out the process to assign a price, then we're just going to spin our wheels every season from now till Kingdom Come. You know, if it's not just based on a very simple concept, the percentage of the market price that is afforded to the harvester, the other percentage afforded to the processor. That's it. I mean, until we can figure that out and all hands can agree, like they did, for instance, in Alaska, and they've got a bulletproof process in place at this moment in time. We just do the same thing over and over again. Last year, the panel said the quiet part out loud. This is probably not the right price. And so consequently, 6 weeks of frustration, 6 weeks of tie-up, arbitration gets involved on the heels of it. We still don't know what financial compensation might be flowing from the union to the ASP, but until we figure out the price process, we can talk about all the other issues, but they are going to play second fiddle to the ultimate price.
100%. I remember now, Blackwood and his committee, when they did the study, said that they thought the current crisis was avoidable. And I would think time is everything. Do we have the ability to come up with the right formula? I think everyone would agree we sure do. I think we need to make sure that we're not pressed for time. It's done at a time that we're not pushing the season or the start of the season. And when we look at how all this unfolded, there were pressures all along as far as time crunches that was pushing the process when really it ought not to have. But I would think we will eventually arrive at a formula. We will come up with one, but it's a shame that the timing-wise didn't work out. Blackwood has suggested before Christmas, if I'm not mistaken. Now I think he said late fall or winter that we ought to have the formula. It would be long in advance of the start of the snow crab fishery. But before we knew it, I mean, we were pushing into late February and early March, and we didn't know where things were, with the negotiation. So right. I think it will work out. I look at some statistics and say we had 17,104 employed in the fishery or in industry in 22. That's down in 23 to 16,100. And I'm saying we need to dedicate a whole lot of attention and time, not only responding, but being proactive in a whole lot of areas within the fishery. I often said that everyone don't have all the answers, but everyone got the will to sit down and come up with what needs to be. Blackwood has proven that he's capable of doing it. We have the Vardys of the world. We have the Bob Hardys, the Ray Andrews, the Morley Knights. They're all out there that we can make sure that we come down. Unfortunately, we've got a breakdown in trust in the system now, and that's sad. Yeah. So that's got to be restored. And in order for us to make hay and come up with that pricing formula that works for the harvesters and gets the plant workers working within the plant in Bonavista. Is it complex, Patty? We know it is. Is it achievable? It certainly is. I know that we've talked about as a party having a standalone department for fisheries and aquaculture, and I know that might be discussion for a different time. But the whole reason why that was floated is to know that it's important. It needs a whole lot of attention. We want to grow it, not maintain it. We want to grow it, but there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done in order to grow it.
I appreciate the time, Craig. Thanks for the call.
Thank you very much, Patty.
You're welcome.
All
Bye-bye.
the best.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Fisheries critic and PC member for Bonavista. I've been asked many times to play songs in reference to the solar eclipse. We don't really do that anymore on this program for some reason. And it's total eclipse of the heart or whatnot. Let me put this one out there. Probably a little bit off the radar. You're so vain. I mean, how's that? So, I heard you went to Saratoga and your horse naturally won. Then you flew your Learjet up to Nova Scotia to see the total eclipse of the sun. Let's take a break. Don't go away. And welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Richard. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Perfect. Appreciate that. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, we are. My name is Richard. My wife and I are driving an electric truck, the Rivian R1T, across the country. Been on the road since last May, and we actually just landed for the second time here in Newfoundland, and we're doing some events to bring this technology just to people who want to see it and ask questions. So we're going to be here the next little bit. We're heading up to St. Anthony tomorrow, and are going to be at the Lions Club for about 4:30 to 7 o'clock. And then heading out to St. John's for a Saturday event at the Drive Electric Newfoundland Resource Center, and then heading to Bishop's Falls on the Sunday for about 3 o'clock. So if anybody wants to come say hi, that's where we'll be.
So you say this is the second time you've landed here. Does this mean you went across the country and back?
No, it means we were here actually over the Christmas holidays. We left Vancouver in May, went up to Yukon, and then wanted to hit Labrador by the end of the year. So we were able to do that kind of by the skin of our teeth. December 9th, I believe we landed out there, and then made it to Cape Spear on New Year's Eve. And then we've been kind of parked for the winter, just preparing for the rest of the year out in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, and then came back out here for the last few events in this area before we start heading west again to Vancouver around the September timeframe.
And of course, different parts of the country will have different attention to electric vehicles. Like, for instance, you mentioned you're going to St. Anthony. The concern that many people in this province will have is, maybe not just simply the temperature and geography, what have you, is infrastructure. Because if you're in British Columbia, fast charging stations, whether it be for simply parking downtown or making your way across the province, is one thing. Here, I know they're working towards it. I think there's maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 fast chargers along the highway network. So describe the difference in infrastructure across the country. Some provinces want little to nothing to do with EVs. Some are quite bullish on them, like BC, where the penetration numbers are extraordinary, versus many other pockets of the country. So what's the infrastructure differences look like across the country?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey finding out all about that. I would say there's been three parts that have been, call it, lacking on infrastructure. Northern BC, from Fort Nelson to the Yukon, that was a little bit of a harrowing journey there. We were parking mostly in RV campgrounds overnight. And then from Winnipeg to Sudbury, that had like 3 different chargers, and 2 of them at any one point in time were broken. So you kind of have to roll the dice and hope for the best there. And then Labrador, at this point in time, getting from like Red Bay up to Happy Valley, Goose Bay, there's literally nothing. But that's also quite difficult with a gas-powered car as well. Newfoundland, at this point, they do have quite a decent network of fast chargers around, but there's only one at each location. So if somebody's there while you're there, you're kind of just forced to wait, which is a lot of the parts of the country at this point. That's just simply how it is. There is infrastructure, but first come, first served, and then second come gets to wait. And that'll kind of be the situation until there's 2 or 3 more stations at each location, which will take a handful of time, I'm sure.
So why are you doing this anyway, Richard? Is there specific about simply the technology itself, or are you raising funds or an awareness for something else, or what was the motivation?
I'd say the biggest motivation was to take the lessons that my wife and I have learned in the infrastructure industry in BC, and then bring that education and information and insights across the country. So we've been working in the electric vehicle charging space for about 6 years. We've put in about 500 different stations in various scenarios, multifamily, commercial, airports, municipalities, all that kind of thing. And we've made our fair share of mistakes, learning all the lessons that need to be learned to actually get it up and running properly the first time, maybe the second time. And wanted to do a cross-Canada trip, and so we figured what better way than to bring the information and insights that we do have from BC, which, as you said, is leading the way on EV adoption in North America, to other parts of the country where it's just not there yet. And so it's been about a 4-year campaign to really plan this trip out, and that's led us down to California to go knock on the door of Rivian Automotive. Just started being the squeaky wheel, I suppose, and they moved us up the delivery window so we could purchase one of their R1T trucks. And so we figured that we get one of those that'll actually get people discussing the industry, as opposed to, say, a Nissan Leaf or something that, I mean, it's an electric vehicle, but it's not going to be something that people really start a conversation around. So this one, it's a head turner, and it's got all the gizmos and the bells and whistles that actually make a journey like this possible. So we clicked over 40,000 kilometers about a week and a half ago, which is pretty crazy. It's a 500-kilometer range battery, and so it's the vehicle that's been able to get us from all corners of the country.
I appreciate the time, and welcome back to the province, Richard. Drive safe.
No problem. Appreciate it. Thanks for the time as well.
My pleasure. Take care. Bye-bye. Dave, what am I at here? Am I due a break, or what's going on? Yeah, okay, let's take that. When we come back, wind energy, the flooding update on Bay St. George. Right, was that Bay St. George? Yeah, okay. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 6. Good morning, Nadine. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. We have just witnessed, I guess, a devastation here in the Cape St. George area. As you know, with all the flooding that we had, the assessment is still ongoing. Applaud going out to our mayor and keeping the residents informed here of the situation and all the updates. However, there were still times that, some seniors were kind of anxious and in that little time frame, I guess, that we had, the essential services were cut off to the existing roads, the conditions that we're in. So it's, very vulnerable at that time. I myself had to cancel my parents' appointments for doctors because of the extra ride around the area, 45 minutes. And they could not endure that trip for that long. And even along the roads going over the 45-minute drive and extra kilometers over the peninsula, the roads were deplorable. There were a lot of road washouts along the way, a lot of potholes, and even in one area across in mainland, there was just one way with the roads washed out on either side. And, if that would have been totally washed out, we would have been totally disconnected from everyone on here on the peninsula. So it just gives, the peninsula has been through disasters before, but this has been the worst one yet. How fast it came, the water, and, it was a replay of the 1990s when we had a big flood here as well. But now a bigger concern, with the World Energy GH2 on our doorstep and with the minister's decision tomorrow is of great concern. This peninsula has already had a lot of projects that came in and out, and we had Hunt Oil here up on the mountain, it's going to be a lot of congestion, a lot of, a lot of construction. It's going to be to us right now where we're so vulnerable from this disaster that just happened. The assessments are still going on. And like I said, we're having the minister's decision tomorrow. Like for myself and for a few, like what's going to happen, like we have right now in the area. The Roses Brook that was devastated to this flood out, and which was the main road that was washed out in the area. World Energy GH2 is going to propose 13 wind turbines around our watershed here, and that's around the Roses Brook area. So, you have a company that's coming in now to a vulnerable area, and they're going to be proposing 13 wind turbines around that Roses Brook Shed area, which was just devastated by all the flooding. So, it raises more concerns about how this project is going to affect the areas on the Port-au-Port, especially to our area. And, the more you learn about the project and the more you learn about the explosives that they're going to be used. And some of the elements is going to be ammonium nitrate and fuel oil. And, these chemicals will certainly make its way into our protected watershed, which will in turn pollute our precious water supply. And you think about the explosions itself, it will disturb the bedrock. And it will cause landslides and potential damage to roadways, which are the lifeline here. You have people that are living all along the coastline, and you have World Energy GH2 project proposed right into the middle of the peninsula. You know, they're going to be taking up 40% of the peninsula. And when you think about the residents are all downhill from there, I mean, you know, the unknown risk, we keep saying, we've called in before, you know, this government has a responsibility to do this, you know, to take projects like this in consideration to where people are living. You know, the wildlife, I mean, where's the wildlife going to go? I mean, this is a peninsula. We only have a little isthmus, and the people are surrounded. And how we felt in this devastation last week is, where will the people go if an accident or something is going to happen from these projects? Because no one can guarantee us, and I know you're going to say, and everyone will say, well, we don't know the outcome of this project. But if you go into their EIS, you know, they are not talking about done deal plans, because this has never been done here before. So you have plans that are not really, to us, going to be good enough, because we feel that, you know, all these plans that are coming out is going to be retrospect when they're in the project, because a lot of data, you know, right now is not making us feel that this is a thorough planned project, because it has never been done. So, you know, we are getting anxious there now, because we cannot afford to have any more mishaps, or I guess not mishaps, I would say, but I guess detrimental you know, effects here to our environment, because this is what's actually protecting the residents here now.
Yeah,
and,
now,
you know,
the only new part here is, because wind is not new, the new part would be the electrolysis hydrogen ammonia plants at the Port of Stephenville. So the concept of wind turbines, whether it be in the Shetland Islands or anywhere in the United States or in Europe, that's not the new thing. The new part is how they're going to create that energy for export. So I understand people's concerns. I'm really curious as to whether or not the government's going to hit their own self-imposed timeline of tomorrow to be the next update date on world energy. Anything else you'd like to add this morning, Nadine, while we have you?
Yeah, well, you know, what I want to say is that if this government is going to propose any projects, especially on the peninsula here, they must consider the size and the scope of the project is going to be. We have 4,000 people here living on the peninsula, and we should be protected from any development that comes here, because we are a small peninsula, and we need to be protected from any harm that these development or projects will cause the people here.
I appreciate your time, Nadine. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Dave, will I take our next caller here? Yeah. Let's go to line number one. Say good morning to the president of the National NDP. That's Mary Shortle. Mary, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning, Patty. Thanks for taking my call.
Happy to do.
I heard you in the preamble on dental care and the rollout and the number of questions and concerns that people have. We're hearing them too, and I just wanted to update you a little bit on what we've been doing to address that, and how we've been talking to people and stuff. But I just wanted to say first, I mean, the NDP has always had a vision of a comprehensive universal health care system that includes dental care, that includes pharmacare, of course, as well. No matter how much money people make or where their place of residence is in this country, we have always been advocating, and even in my labor job, we've always advocated for that universality. So that's where the NDP comes from, and they have never changed their position on that. And I heard one of your callers earlier talking about minority governments, and you were correct when you said to them, you know, very often the things that happen that benefit the majority of Canadians the most is when there are minority governments, including when we have Medicare for the first time, and including lots of the other progressive and good legislation that we have. They've all been developed in minority governments. It's a powerful tool that a party like the NDP has in a minority case. So in this case, that was the same way. And let's be clear about it. The Liberals and the Conservatives did not want a dental care plan. I mean, they voted it down twice. That's
probably not. I mean, and I know the NDP
No.
want to take full credit for it, and so be it. That's the nature of politics. And it's interesting that the NDP haven't simply, quote-unquote, propped up the Liberals. They propped up the Harper Conservatives as well, which I think is lost in this conversation. Look, the concept of helping Canadians who can't afford dental care, which is an absolute part of your overall health and well-being, conceptually all makes sense. The problem was with how it was constructed, the lack of details associated with it, and, putting the cart in front of the horse when you don't bring the Dental Association until a month prior to launching it, and now they're confused, they don't have the details, they say the administrative burden is something they're not interested in. We don't know how many of the 30,500 dental professionals are even going to enroll in it. So conceptually, sounds good. Money, huge. Help people with their dental health, great. But with all the concerns being voiced by patients, dentists, hygienists, and denturists, and all the umbrella associations, we have ourselves a problem here.
It is a problem, and there are lots of questions, and that is where we do have to keep the Liberal government's feet to the fire to get this right, because it's costing a lot of money. There's going to be 4.5 million seniors across the country who will benefit from this, 9.1 million when the whole program is rolled out. So we do got to get it right. And I know even when Medicare started, there were a lot of hiccups along the way, a lot of bumps along the way. So what we've been doing, I've been keeping in touch with primarily Minister Davies, who was one of the negotiators in that, to find out what's been happening. And I've been listening to Minister Holland talking about the negotiations with the various dental associations across the country. And there is a Facebook page that's a coalition of people who work in dentistry who are promoting this and who really want this to work. And it's called the Coalition for Dental Care. It includes like dentists and hygienists and dental students and allied health professionals. And they've been working really hard as well to push the government to come out with this, right? I know a lot of it is around the overcapacity that will happen when the number of dentists take on all the extra patients. Another issue has been the fee schedules, and the NDP has been very clear that dentists should be paid exactly what they earn for this. It shouldn't be any different than any other patient they have, but there have been negotiations around what that fee schedule should look like. When I talked to Don Davis just last week, they said that the negotiations were happening and that the fee schedule for 2024, which isn't out yet, strangely enough, but is due to come out, is a way better fee schedule than they proposed for 2023. So everyone remains optimistic that it will. There's lots of bumps. I mean, we've had 2 or 3 different actions. Now, we've been holding sessions primarily targeted at seniors because they're the first people who are rolling out with this. Don Davies came on by Zoom and he explained the program and we talked about the issues. And some people had concerns, when they had workplace insurance plans and stuff like that. So we had all those conversations. Yesterday, we participated in a national day of action where MPs and candidates and riding associations were asked to do a leaflet drop and a knock-on-door canvas right across Canada to talk to people about dental care. And on that, we had a piece of paper that had a QR code on it where people could actually ask their questions through text to this code. I've been getting an awful lot of emails as well, questions, and I'm happy to do that, and we'll continue to do that. So if people have concerns or questions about how to register or why they're not receiving their letters or are they eligible or not, we'd be very happy to answer those questions because it's in our best interest for all of us to make this program work and to work out those bumps and to highlight, not just the bumps along the way because we need to recognize them in order to fix them, but this really is a historic program. It's something something that's going to make a huge difference for people, and it's something that's going to take some pressure off our healthcare system. It's going to lift people up, not just economically, but also as participants in a society where they haven't quite felt participants, especially with dental, especially with kids and especially with people and self-confidence and all that. So, I mean, we need to celebrate that good thing, and I think that's why our party has stayed very diligent in trying to make sure that it rolls out properly and those bumps get resolved. And that it really is now up to the Liberal government to make sure that this works. They know the figures. They know how much this is going to help people, and we need to hold them now to, and help them where we can to just roll this out properly.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a little bit of cake and eat it too inside of that, Mary, because if the NDP are going to take the victory lap on this one, then you're in a pretty advantageous political position here because the Liberals get to wear it. Even though the only reason this has even come to pass, using your own words, is because of the NDP influence in the Supply and Confidence Agreement. Same thing with pharmacare. I mean, it was driven in large part by your party, but you really do get to stand back now and play the second role of critics of the government. What I would suggest that Dan Davies and others should have been more intimately involved in the construction and the structure of the programme, as opposed to it rolled out deeply flawed, and now it's the government's fault.
Well, I'm not saying that. They are still involved in those negotiations. They are still sitting down. But the reality is that the Liberal government is the government in power. They're ones who legislated this and through those thorough negotiations and stuff. So they do have that extra responsibility to make sure it works. The NDP hasn't, beat their chest and say we're perfect, and they're not. I mean, they've been celebrating it with them. They've been standing side by side. You're celebrating that this is a really big historic moment, and so is the pharmacare bill that's due to get passed soon, right? So they do, but at the end of the day, those negotiations one-on-one with the people who are funding this program, ultimately, and Minister Holland said it himself when he was on there, that they have the responsibility to make sure this works. And if they're not paying at the end of the day, the proper fee schedule, or they're not investing in making sure that there's enough dentists to carry this out that are enrolling, then the NDP can put as much pressure as possible on them, and they will continue to do that. And they will continue to ask the public to also express their concerns publicly. And that is the political action that makes all of the laws work, right? So it isn't just about, we in a minority position, we have actually, accomplished something that may not have happened in another scenario, but it did happen. And I think we all have a responsibility to make sure that it rolls out properly. And that's why we hold the sessions and that we answer those questions, and we'll continue to do that. Right.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay, Patty.
Take care.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Mary Shortall is the president of the NDP. Let's take a break. When we come back, Ken wants to talk about transparency grassroots groups. Not really sure what that means, but Ken will let us know. And Robert, you're probably next to talk about wind energy. Or David will tell me who's next for it after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Gerard, you're on the air. Line number 4, Gerard.
Good morning, Paddy.
Good morning to you.
Nice to take me on, Paddy. We spoke before there. Paddy, I'm having some severe problems with government. Number one, they took away my home care the end of the month there, and I have like Parkinson's and I'm visually impaired, and I do find it hard to cook over a stove. And I'm very independent, and Paddy, I was really trying to talk to you with this off here, but where you were so busy, I said, well, I'll go on here. The big thing is that they took away my home care. My home care has nothing to do with bags that I need for a catheter and all that. Now they're telling me that if I don't pay a fair amount of money that I just can't afford, $214, that I won't have catheter bags. And I went all the way around. I called him at MHA at his house. He didn't even call me back. And the nurse said, they're just giving me the runaround. It's like I'm really up in the air. I don't have any. And this thing about home care, I do need a bit of it. And where I'm 65, they took everything away.
So, home care was the only opportunity you had access to free catheter bags? Is that what that means?
Well, I had catheters since late of 2021, and you know, as I said, you knew me when I told you, you know, when my partner passed, you know, she was in here with me for years. So when 2022, I had to get home care. I had a social worker come by and said, no problem. She said, I know that you find it hard to cook over a stove, and that's the big issue. That is most everything. That, you know, and if I ever could get to talk to you off here, I'd just like to talk to you about something else, but I wouldn't want to talk to you about that on here. The big thing is I can clean a lot of my home and do different things like that and try wash clothes and that. But when it comes to a stove, no. I cannot do that. It is very hard to me. My hand shakes, and, you know, people are not listening to me. They're saying, oh, you know, go and talk to the minister, or go and talk to this one, and you're getting the real runaround. Now, the bags is that, you know, they're expecting me. They're saying, oh, well, you know, if you don't pay this fee, we're not going to give you no home care. And they're making it really hard ball. And there's a lot of people out there in my you know, my situation probably, you know. But, I mean, I need the help.
Trying to think of where someone can point you for help. So, yeah, I was just talking. Yeah, I'm listening to you. So,
yeah, I mean, everywhere, Paddy, honestly. And it's very griefful, you know. I mean, if I don't like to be looking for things unless I really need it.
I understand. So, I'd love to be able to think of somewhere I can point you for immediate help. Gerard? Are you still there?
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard, but...
Well, it sounds hard.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I was just waiting for you. I'll give you the final thoughts, Gerard.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening, and I'm speaking with you. Can you hear me?
Right.
Dave, we must have some sort of connection issue.
Yeah, I can hear you. It's like, I don't know, because of the weather. No, yeah, what's that?
I don't know.
I'm just wondering, Petty, is there any way you can help me? That's all.
I wish I knew where to turn, to be honest. Yeah, I'll get David to speak with Gerard and see if we've got some sort of connection issue. Let's take a break right on time for the news. When we come back, Robert's there to talk about wind energy, and then whatever you want to talk about, don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 5. Robert, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. Thank you for taking my call today.
No problem.
So I just wanted to call in today, seeing Minister Davis's decision is due tomorrow on the EIS submission for World Energy DH2. I just want to go on record in saying that I don't feel that environmental impact statement should be approved in its current state. There's so many questions remaining. There's the studies regarding wildlife. It's a lot of it is saying will be determined and monitored in corrections or what's it called? Protections after the fact, or that'll be determined at a later date. So the amount of missing information, and especially the area for the Cadroy Valley, I believe it was, that they don't have the overlay for the people to get an idea of what the wind farms will look like there. But just overall in general, for all of these projects, if Minister Davis does approve this, even with conditions, it sets a precedent that an incomplete EIS can get through our processes, which is a dangerous thing in my opinion. I know it's common to have assessments released with conditions, but in my opinion, with the scope of work and the consequences related to this, then I believe that everything should be presented to the public beforehand, and I believe that he should be able to have, I believe he's got an opportunity to hold public information, public debate about it or forums.
But is the minister really the right person to hold a public debate forum? Because he's the minister of the environment, as opposed to everyone who's playing some sort of active role in the assessment. And isn't it pretty standard practice? Not to say it's good or bad, but when a conditional approval is granted, then the final approval is not met until conditions are also achieved, right? Isn't that how that always works?
That's correct, yes, but there are cases where the companies just go ahead without providing the requirements as well. So, but overall, I think just like Mike said earlier, I'm not the smartest or not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I'm definitely not a spoon here. But I just want to go over just the whole thing in basic terms for everybody in case they don't understand fully what's happening. So, in the big scope of things, in basic sense, what we're planning to do is take federal investment money and private investment money from overseas investors to give to these questionable businessmen with no history of being concerned about the environment at all and a large history of subsidy harvesting in order to purchase turbines from Europe or China, ship them over here, destroy thousands of acres of our carbon capturing forests and our carbon storing bogs and fens, deep bogs. In order to install these things, then the construction alone is going to cause a lot of irreparable damage to the environment, including the blasting, the construction of roads. Then once they're in operation, they're going to be destroying and displacing our wildlife. They're going to require ongoing maintenance. Once the ammonia is created, they're going to take the energy from the turbines, bring it to centralized plants such as Stephenville or in Botwood, create hydrogen by removing water from our ecosystem at a rate of millions and millions of liters a day. That, again, is separated from this molecule, so it's not going to enter the water cycle ever again. Then they convert that hydrogen into ammonia. Then the ammonia gets shipped overseas using ammonia transport ships that will need to be manufactured for this new industry. Then the ammonia gets to Germany. The German government converts it back into hydrogen, or the businesses over there, not the government. So then once the energy is converted back into hydrogen in Germany, it's at about a 20% efficiency from when the energy was created from the wind turbines on the island here. So then that hydrogen in Germany is going to be used to further their economic and in this industry over there. So the large industry in Germany is actually steel production. So once they make the steel, it's going to making turbine parts to send back over to Newfoundland to make more wind turbines.
But the steel industry can't be fueled by hydrogen, though. I mean, that's one of the big industries on the face of the earth that still requires fossil fuels for the heat and intensity.
Exactly. But this is what they're planning to do. They're planning on using hydrogen in order to power. I think there was articles online that I read about converting or using hydrogen in order to create it. But what I'm saying is that it's going to be creating power for their grids, and the power is used for the grids as well for their industry and their steel production. So then a lot of the energy is going to be used to create parts to send back here at a loss. So this is what I'm trying to get at. So,
but the fundamentals, though, Robert, is that hydrogen cannot be a primary fuel source for the steel industry. It just doesn't have the intensity and the heat that is required, which is a fossil fuel, still in the industry reliant on fossil fuels. So Germans are talking about heating people's homes with hydrogen to, generate power for the grid, as opposed to big, large-scale industrial complex, because it simply doesn't have the power that is required for those industries. Steel, notably.
Yes. So, again, we're going to be providing power for the companies that are creating the products to send over here. And if they're not using, so then if we're creating a bigger demand for steel by creating a demand for the shipping vessels, the plants, the turbines, and again, turbines, like you said, steel is made from fossil fuel, so the large portion of that is from the turbines, and not just the blades. The steel, like you said, is required for make the turbines. So if we're creating all these turbines, we're not really helping the environment by lowering the carbon emissions. We're exacerbating the issues by making more demand for steel and industry. So, and again, another thing. So, what's the? I asked Rabi about shipping the material to Germany, and he said, well, they're going to use ammonia as a shipping fuel for the ships. So, right now, there's a company in the works that's trying to make that a feasible product. But the issue with that is that when you burn ammonia, its chemical formula is NH3. So instead of CH4, which is carbon and methane gas and natural gas, or any fossil fuel, it's a carbon chain, they're replacing carbon emissions with noxious gas emissions, which is nitrogen oxide and others, which is much worse for the environment.
Aren't wind turbines primarily made of carbon fiber and fiberglass?
And what's that?
Aren't the wind turbines, the blades, primarily made of carbon fiber and fiberglass?
Yes, and where does fiberglass and carbon fiber come from? It's an oil derivative, and it releases BPA from the leading edge wear into the environment. So there's a huge. This is just a cyclic proposal that will ultimately do more harm for our planet. And as Veronica Sullivan said in an open letter that was posted on the EnviroWatch Facebook page, I believe it was a quote by Albert Einstein: "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." So we have an issue with emissions from industry, yet we're going to reindustrialize the world by creating a huge, massive demand in mining and oil in order to greenwash people into thinking that they're doing a good thing for the planet. So these multinational billion-dollar investment companies can profit off of our resources, and the only thing that Newfoundlanders are getting for it is a promise of jobs, which are going to be short-term jobs for the construction. And then once the projects, if the projects do get completed and they do get to market without continued ongoing federal subsidies or taxpayer subsidies from Canada and Germany, then every single one of these projects are destined to fail because the prices cannot compete on the world market. And to prove that, I asked Ravi in his meeting in November 6th, what is the expected cost of production versus market sale price of his ammonia? And his answer to me was, it doesn't matter how much it costs, we're still going to be profitable. So that is very concerning to me, that somebody who's proposing a multi-billion-dollar project that grew from $3 to $6 billion originally when it was announced and is now up to $10 billion, that he doesn't know how much it's going to cost to produce the tons of ammonia that he's suggesting, but he still thinks it's going to be profitable. So the whole thing is just completely asinine, in my opinion, and I don't understand how anybody can honestly believe that this is a good idea.
Appreciate the time as usual, Robert. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Maureen's got an update based on a tax concern she had last week, and Ken wants to talk about transparency. Okay, don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 2. Ken, you're on the air.
Morning, buddy. How are you?
Doing okay, Ken. How about you?
I'm a little bit disturbed, and I'll get into that in a minute. Okay. Recently, I've noticed some commercials, if you will, on NTV, mostly late at night, and it's from a group called Protect NL. Now, that's a group that opposes industrial wind in Newfoundland. So, now, I understood, like I'm involved in this myself. I'm with Wind Concerns Newfoundland. I understood this to be a grassroots movement, okay? Now, I was over on the group, and there was one lady, she says, I saw your ad commercial on NTV earlier. Just curious, who is funding this movement? Now, however, the entire thread, I screen recorded it all, and the owner of the group, or the one behind it, that particular group, is not willing to say where the funding is coming from. Now, Patty, you know how much airtime it costs. I don't have to explain it to you, but if I was to put a commercial on your radio station right now, I'm sure I'd be looking at a lot of dollars for just a 15-second airtime on VOCM. But this particular person running this group already says that she has already purchased airtime to reach more people in Newfoundland. Now, But my question is, where's the transparency? Why do things have to be hidden if this is a grassroots movement?
But what exactly are you looking for from them?
Oh, I'm not looking anything from them. I'm just saying, like, if this is a grassroots movement, you know, people that are opposed to industrial wind development in Newfoundland, why can't we be transparent as to where our money is coming from to put ads on NTV or to buy airtime, say, for example, on VOCM? Why do we have to hide things? I don't get this.
Well, maybe someone who's behind it, financially speaking, simply doesn't want their name as part of it.
Oh, I understand that, but if I was to put paid ads on your radio station, okay, first of all, whoever is going to pay me must be willing to have their name out there. Okay, that's my way of thinking.
I don't know. There's a couple of things come to mind. For instance, I know some pretty charitable, altruistic business people that they are very specific. When they make a donation to one cause or another, they simply do not want their name attached. Why? Because when people know that Johnny Jones has made a sizable financial contribution to one thing or another, all of a sudden, Johnny Jones is under siege from every other not-for-profit or charitable organization in the province, because now they know that Johnny has some money and is willing to donate to one cause or another. So some people keep their names out of it simply so they're not, going to be repeatedly bombarded with requests. That's absolutely part of it for some people.
But in my way of thinking, this particular group, it's no longer about a grassroots movement. It's turning into a brand or evolving into a brand. Like I just don't get it. And well, questions are being raised as to. Is this group genuine, or the leader of this group? Like, what's behind all of this?
I'm not 100% sure I'm following your concern. So if they have like-minded people who have questions or simply do not want these wind proposals to move forward, and they're able to either pool their own money or bring in someone with deeper pockets to the cause, that's kind of their own interests being satisfied and their own elbow grease getting some traction, financially speaking. So I must be missing one of the main concerns that you're trying to articulate here, Ken.
Well, what I'm thinking, Paddy, is if it's a grassroots movement, shouldn't organic reach be good enough?
Is there anything to indicate that that's not the case here? Like, they have a pretty sizable presence insofar as numbers of people that have, said that they agree with their stance. And I'm not sure what they've paid for ads, but of course, when you run them that late into the night, as you described, because I haven't seen them, then of course that comes with a significant cost savings beyond if you were running it during the NTV evening news hour, for instance. So I don't know what they've paid. And if it's run for a certain amount of a cycle, then if you say you had 1,000 people that were all in agreement and they all put in $10, you could buy a fair bit of advertising late at night on NTV, I would think. I don't know what they charge now, to be 100% honest with you, but I think you can raise $10,000 pretty quick for groups like that. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's akin to, the GoFundMe or whatever that when the convoy was. But what I'm looking at is further down the road, should this movement actually gain some traction, right now, let's talk about the convoy. You got people writing novels and stuff like that, making money off a grassroots movement. Just don't seem right to me.
Well, opportunism is going to be a pretty key feature of this type of environmental landscape that we live in. People take advantage of all kinds of stuff.
But, I mean, it goes right back to, if you can't reach people organically on Facebook, then if you have to come up with money to reach more people via the mainstream or whatever, something's not right there. Not to me.
I know. I mean, if there's something larger at play here, like if there's some industrial player that's involved with funding this group, whether it be traditional energy sources like the oil business or someone else, Maybe, just maybe, and it's really hard to say. If they're not willing to tell us, then they don't owe us an answer, even though it would be better, I think, for all involved if we knew how certain programs and processes and advertising campaigns get funded. So if it's another energy source that is driving their finances, fair ball, and that could be a concern, because that happens all the time. I mean, doesn't it? Inside the world of advocacy and the need for money, whoever has skin in the game, and if that group is successful, their industry or their company stands to benefit, then of course they're going to get involved behind the shadows, behind closed doors, and help fuel their funding. So, yeah, that's fair.
Well, Patty, I'm going to end on this note, okay?
Okay.
Now, if I saw a World Energy GH2 on NTV, yeah, I'd be down there. I'd be in on that right away and saying, there you go. Wait, if this is so good, why do they need to pay for advertising? I would be questioning it, okay? And I'll leave you with that.
I appreciate your time. Thanks for the call, Ken.
All right, thanks, Patty. You have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Let's go to line number 1. Maureen, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you.
I called you a Friday about my late husband's tax papers.
Yes, ma'am, I remember. You had a complicating factor that included a tax, like what we would call a T4 from the United States.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to phone to tell you to thank you very much for your help. And also to the hub, and especially for Tom.
So he was able to figure it out for you?
Yes, he come here Friday afternoon, he picked up the papers, and he dropped back Saturday with them. All done.
That's great. I'm really pleased that it worked out, and big thanks to Tom, who heard our conversation, sent me an email. I was able to relay the information to you, and here we are. So that's the good news. And I will say on Tom's behalf that I should say, so that he is not inundated with requests for tax preparation, that it will likely come at a cost. So I don't think he's got the time to provide free preparation for people's taxes. So, but I'm glad he was able to take care of you, Maureen. Was there something in particular that he informed you of that made the U.S. tax slip a complicating factor here? Like, what did he do? Do you happen to know the ins and the outs?
No, he never had to know nothing. He just told me that my niece had to sign the papers because she was the executor. Because we had it done if I wasn't able to do them, that my niece would get them all done.
Okay. Well, ultimately, I'm glad it got done, Maureen.
I am too. That's the last of it. Thank heavens.
Yes, thank heavens. Tax season is a painful time of the year, I'll say.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, that it is. I don't look forward to it. That much I can tell you. So did it work out for you? Do you owe the CRA any money?
No.
Good. Glad to hear it.
And it's a matter of fact, Tom never even charged me.
Okay, and he will maybe in the future. So, folks, I can't put you on and promise you a free processing by Tom at the hub, but I'm glad it worked out for you, Maureen. I appreciate the update.
Okay, then.
You take good care.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you all very much.
Yep, my pleasure. Happy to help.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Just very quickly, so this from a listener. Can you make your listeners aware that some of the traffic lights are covered by snow and they're hard to see? Just witnessed a near accident with a guy flying on the crosstown by Newfoundland Labrador housing building and a Metro bus because the guy ran the red light. Clearly the fault of the guy driving the car, not the Metro bus. Apparently the bus driver had quick reflexes. So yes, some of the traffic lights may indeed be covered up somewhat with snow. And yes, I don't know what the driving conditions are like. They've probably improved since I came to work because it looks like some bare pavement out there, but it was pretty treacherous earlier today. Okay, let's go and take a break for the news. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line 2. Clarence, you're on the air.
Yes, I'm calling about the windmill for
Sure.
people complaining about it outside there.
Sure.
I was over in Rani. I mean, my wife's there in August this year past. And they've got, I think, 6 of them right in the town. So that same time they were complaining out here, and I asked 2 gentlemen down on the wharf, I asked them, what was the problem with their windmills. They said, we don't have no problem with them. We don't even know they're there. And there's one house maybe, could be a couple 100 feet from it. You know, I don't know. I don't know what the pollution could be.
A couple of key differences would be, Clarence, is that group of windmills is a very small number, as opposed to, for instance, 40% of the Port-au-Port Peninsula being consumed with hundreds of windmills. Plus, the ones that you saw in Ramia, they look like matchsticks up against these. So there's the two key differences. Yeah.
But still, I can't see what pollution you're going to get.
Well, I don't know exactly. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
As far as the wildlife, you're concerned about the wildlife. Me and my wife drive out there quite often during the summer. Matter of fact, we're after making 2 trips there. That summer we're after making 2 trips already, and we don't see a crow or a bird out there. Moose, there's no moose. They had a few out there, but they're all killed off. So I don't know what they could be.
There's without question a wildlife concern here. And, you know, you talk about the pollutants and the environmental impact and whatnot. When people are saying BPA, that's biphosphonol A, and it is an offshoot of the plastics and fiberglass industry, and it is a potential chemical concern. But when you talk about the impact on wildlife, I think that's absolutely going to be a part of it, you know, whether it be for natural habitat for birds, seabirds and otherwise, the bat population, where the moose will and could be. So that's going to have some impact. What it will be, I don't really know, to be honest with you. But if all of the turbines that are proposed by all 5 of these proponents that are still in the queue, then there will be an impact. And we can't deny it. How it's going to be, how big and to what extent it's going to be, I really don't know personally.
Yeah.
But it's real. It's a concern.
Like I say, we go out there during summer quite often. We make the loop.
Yep.
And wildlife, we've been going out there now the last 20 years or more. Every summer we go to make some loop because it's nice out there, beautiful out there. And we hadn't seen a moose, and they're supposed to be up on top of the hill, moose, but I think they're all killed off. And I don't know, as far as birds and that, we've seen a few out at the middle of the Cape, they call it. That's out to the ends, the little park there. We did see some birds out there down in the water, saltwater birds, you know.
Yeah, and in regards to the moose population, you know, success numbers in different zones have probably different implications. Some development has probably reduced moose population in some of the hunting zones. We don't even really firmly know how many moose are on the island anyway. They've changed the process for trying to do the head count. A lot of it ends up being a guesstimate, of course, based on density of one group of moose or another. But what the impact is going to be to wildlife is real. There is an obvious impact coming. Do some people underestimate it? Probably. Do some people exaggerate it? For sure.
Yeah. But like I say, we've been going out there now for years, and we haven't seen a moose. Now, there was moose out there at one time. They put them out there. But we've been going out there, I said 20 years, no more than that. And the wife is related to some people from the Cape out there.
Okay.
And we stop in and visit them once in a while. But we never seen a moose. And like I say, we were out there the other day, and there was a few seabirds down right at the middle, what they call the middle of the Cape out to the end. But as far as wildlife, you don't see a bird. I can't, you know, as far as wildlife, it's not much, I tell you.
Yeah, and inside the concerns that Robert brought forward regarding impact on wildlife, it does read like there's the potential for an approval. Say, for instance, like, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but let's just say there is an approval granted tomorrow to World Energy GH2, and it does come with conditions. It is going to be important that it is, you know, conditions need to be met before final approval is actually granted, and you can only hope that will be the case, because we can't leave it up to the whims of the companies to satisfy every condition. If their feet aren't held to the fire, then they may or may not, and likely they won't. So I think that's going to be fascinating to hear how Minister Davis presents whatever, if it happens tomorrow, because that's what we were told, April 9th.
I think myself is going to go ahead. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty well.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. But like I say, they got them over in Rami, right in the town. Like I said, there's a house about 200 feet from it. And there was two fellows on the wharf, and I asked them, they said, we don't even know they're there. That's what one fellow said, yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I can't see pollution from them, but, you know, you got a tower with a blade on the top.
Yeah, now they talk about different types of pollution. And again, there's... Anyway, let's just see. They'll talk about the lubricants required and the bisphosphonyl A, and they'll talk about pollution as it's associated with the deforestation and devegetation. They'll talk about pollution that might come in the form of noise pollution. They talk about it as it might come in the form of light pollution and the whole concept of flicker. So I think pollution is a bit of a catch-all when they use that word.
Yeah, but out in the mainland, there's a fellow from out there told me, there's 3 houses got their sewer run in the little brook. There's only one little brook out there, I think. And they got, there might be 2, but they got 3 houses with the sewer running into it. Oh.
Yeah, now that obviously is a problem before wind ever came to town. And when we talk about mainland, and they had a concern with the murky or the now foggy drinking water, but at that point, because World Energy went into mainland and they put up that meteorological tower to get some data about wind, and when the water issue was brought to bear, they said, well, we'll bring in hydrologists, we'll bring in water so-called experts, and we'll figure out exactly what the complications are, how or why the water changed its look and or taste, but folks in the area didn't want it for some reason. What I would have thought...
And what's the gentleman's name that's over this?
John Risley.
John Risley offered to drill them a well or 2.
He offered a few solutions or potential solutions, and they weren't interested. For what reason, I'm not entirely sure.
Well, I guess they'd rather come in a speedboat and get their water, I guess. I don't know.
It could be.
We're trying to figure out. But anyway, that's it. Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time, sir. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, before we get to the break, we had some problems with the connection with Gerard on one. He rejoins us. Gerard, you're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Patty. I'm sorry about the hassle, but it could be my phone, too.
I'm not sure.
You know, I was just wondering if you have any other ideas what Dave told me about. You know, I'm really in a hard place, boy, you know?
Yeah, I know you are. And Gerard, if I knew where to point you for some additional home care and or some funding pots of money, I'd be more than happy to do it to try to get you through a rough spot. But I'm not really sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Dave, like Dave says in my ear, my headset here, you know, you can try to get someone in your member's office working on your behalf. You can try to get assigned a new family doctor, which might be able to be helpful to you. And that requires going on the wait list, which I think Dave has relayed this information. It's called Patient Connect. So between those 2 things, I'm not sure what I can add to it. And I wish I could.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and the doctor I had, where I went, Cornwall, they're closed up. But I go into Pippy place in there, you know, and you go back on a wait list, you know, you're lucky to have a doctor, you know.
Yep.
Well, Patty, if you have any other suggestions, could you try to keep in touch with me? I'm in the world and I really don't have anybody to help me, you know. I'm after doing before we turn this way. I'm after going every way to try to get to help.
If I can think of anything at all, Gerard, I'd be happy to pass along the information to you, point you in the right direction. David and I have your number, so if anyone puts a thought in my head as to what we can do to help you out, I'll pass it along, I promise.
And also this thing about the bags, I mean, can they really go ahead and take away my health? You know, I mean, I can't afford to pay, you know, this whack of money for these bags, you know.
Well, I guess they can if they've done it. Not to say it's right. In fact, it seems patently unfair to compromise someone's health because they simply turned 65 years of age. So
that's right. That's my argument, yeah.
So, Gerard, if anything comes my way that could be helpful, myself or David will get back to you. How's that?
Also, that's great, Patty. But I'd like to shout out if there's anybody else out there that's in the same boat as I am, if you want to just leave my number and leave it at the front, you know, and tell that person, a bunch of us gang up and go up in front steps of Confederation Building when the winter's over.
We have your number.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome, Gerard. Take care.
Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, how are we doing, Dave? We got a couple to bring us home. Was that a thumbs up? That's a thumbs down. Okay, if you want to get on the show to wrap it up this morning, there's a good opportunity to do exactly that if you're in the St. John's metro region. 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, it's toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. We're taking a break and then we're coming back. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Michael, you're on the air.
Hello, Paddy. How are you doing?
Doing grand. How about you?
Not too bad, my buddy. I was listening to your caller. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller. And this gentleman that phoned in talking about his lag bags for his catheter.
Yep.
I got many here. I got ran over with a car back in 2020. I had everything broken up, Paddy. I had my back broken in numerous places. I had my lung collapsed. My bladder was tore open. I got plates. I had all of my ribs broken. I had my pelvis and hips crushed. My femur was crushed. And, buddy, I'm still alive. And, Paddy, I told 2 people that night, something is going to happen to me, and I'm going to create my own miracle. And it happened right in front of the church. And, buddy, I'm so grateful. And, Paddy, I'm going to tell you, when my life was falling apart, I've done a lot of time at the HNP. And every time I didn't back down from no one, but I took a lot of poundings. And when you went down to segregation, the only thing you were allowed to have was to read the Bible. And, Paddy, I found out very soon that when my life was falling apart, I looked at my Holy Bible and it was in immaculate condition. And now, when my there's no way for, this miracles happens, Paddy. And I would also like to add those correctional officers at the HMP. There were so many of them going to be charged and whatever the case may be. But, Paddy, they shouldn't be charged. They should have been given a medal, a gold medal, because this man that died in their hands, he murdered like an 88-year-old woman in Labrador.
Yeah, supposing he did doesn't mean now they've been cleared of all charges, but even if he did kill the older lady in Labrador, doesn't mean he should be killed while incarcerated, even though they've been cleared of all the charges.
Paddy, it wasn't that long ago. There was 2 young men that killed a sheep, and they hung them at the gallows. And it wasn't that long ago. And
fair enough. I'm not sure what that's got to do with anything. But, Michael, are you going to be able to help Gerard with some of these bags, if you have some?
Most certainly. Okay. Most certainly. But now I don't know how to... send them, or he's going to pay for it, because I'm on a fixed income right now myself.
Put it this way, Gerard's going to give you a call, and when you guys figure it out, call David and we'll try to figure out how to get the bags to Gerard, okay?
Yes. Paddy, I would like to add, just to brighten up the show.
Sure.
There was a doctor missing in Cornerbrook there for months and months, right? And so his body washed ashore, and when they done the autopsy, Paddy, he was right full of cornflakes and rolled oats. And now they're looking for a serial killer.
Thanks for this, Michael. When you talk to Gerard, let us know what happened so we can help you.
Okay, my buddy. You take care. And
you too.
Okay, bud.
All the best. Thanks, Michael. All right, maybe final word, not sure. Let's go to line number 2. Jackie, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty.
Hi.
I've been listening to your show this morning. A thought just occurred to me. Maybe you could help me with it. There was a lot of talk about wind turbines and how it would affect wildlife, affect, agriculture, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. And also talk, there was, back and forth what ifs and all of this. So, but I thought, well, with so many wind turbines, like in Nova Scotia, Ontario, some here apparently in Newfoundland, other countries and stuff like that, a lot of the statistics that or questions that people had in terms of how it would affect wildlife, etc. Wouldn't our government and the companies that are going to be putting this in pretty much have a basic idea? I mean, Newfoundland, they know where the wildlife is, and I would say they'd have a good idea. So they can talk to somebody else. Like up in Ontario, they would have statistics like what happened to wildlife, how did it affect agriculture, how did it affect all of that. I just don't understand, or maybe they don't. Like everybody's just like, maybe they are trying to reinvent the wheel. So I'm just wondering, are they really trying to reinvent the wheel, or they're just trying to keep information from us? Because it seems, to me anyway, pretty obvious that they would have a pretty good idea as to what would happen, or they can speak amongst themselves. Why spend money, how much like it's going to cost to get experts to talk about this and that? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I do. Look, I mean, again, onshore wind is not new, but these proposals are different. And here's why I think that. The largest wind farm in the country at this moment in time is Black Spring Ridge out in Alberta. And it's made up of 166 wind turbines. There's almost double that, or around double that proposed for World Energy GH2 through their 3 phases, so which makes it so much bigger. Also, I will add that the turbines proposed on the Port-au-Port Peninsula are vastly larger in scale and size than those turbines, whether it be in Ontario or Black Spring Ridge or wherever else in the country. So those two things. Plus, we're talking about a pretty congested piece of land, and I'm not saying this is good, bad, or we should do it or we shouldn't, just trying to put out some information. So we're also talking about the Port-au-Port Peninsula that could, if every turbine proposed is installed, is about 40% of the peninsula itself. So I think when you try to think about, the amount of geography consumed by 166 wind turbines in Alberta versus Port-au-Port, different. Size of turbines, different. So you're right, a starting base understanding of what it means environmentally for deforestation or devegetation is certainly, we know enough about it to have an initial starting point of thought and further implications down the road. But I think those two issues I mentioned make this a little bit different and not necessarily analogous. What do you think? I
think pretty good. Pretty good, Patty. You have yourself a great day.
I appreciate your time, Jackie. Thanks for the call.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, I mean, again, there's a bunch of reasons why this has had a real different type of conversation in this province. I think there's a few moving parts. I say that all the time, maybe too much. Number one, Mr. Risley. He's a firebrand. People are familiar with him, and they either like him or loathe him, or like him or loathe him, and that is part of the conversation. It isn't something that we've ever done here. And it's in its infancy when we talk about wind to hydrogen to ammonia. I think another complicating factor possibly for people will be that it's not for domestic use. So we're taking a lot of the so-called environmental risk, and you can quantify that however you see fit. The risk is being taken here for the benefit of people elsewhere. So I think if you put all that together, then you probably have a different feeling conversation. And yes, we can learn from other jurisdictions. In fact, there was a group of municipal leaders went to Ontario in close proximity to wind farm to get a feeling about how it looked and what it meant for the locals, and ask the questions, try to evaluate and understand what the sound or acoustic implications would be. But again, you can only learn so much from those experiences because they are not necessarily the exact same thing we're talking about here. We're talking about significantly larger turbines, which I think does complicate the conversation. And yes, if there's going to be a conditional approval tomorrow with certain things that have to be achieved by the proponent before the final green light is offered, it's going to be interesting to hear exactly what the government has to say tomorrow. And there's still a lot of things where World Energy GH2, they still don't know how they're going to make their final investment decision. Not because I say so, because they say so. I mean, until we have the federal government, like is so often the case, fill in the blanks and add the details required. Because if it's going to be access to 15 to 40% of tax credits or subsidies from the federal government, that difference between 15 and 40 is appreciable, and it's all based on exactly what the definition of green is going to be. If there's going to be interaction between Everwind and Nova Scotia's grid, which is made up of over almost 60% of coke and coal-fired generation, then that's extremely different than what would be the interaction with the grid here in this province, where it's about 80% renewables. So there's still a lot of unknowns here. Of course there are. All right, check in on the Twitter for the final time in the morning, thankfully. We're VOCM Open Line. You know what to do. Follow us there. And, people will come down either side of these conversations, and let's do it again on the program tomorrow. We're also taking your emails. It's openline@vocm.com. But we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.